Welcome to the second part of the walkthrough for DerpNStink, which is a vulnerable virtual machine from VulnHub. So in the first part of this series, we've actually managed to get inside the server through WordPress. We found a vulnerable plugin which was exploitable to arbitrary file upload. So let me try and repeat those last steps. So the username, so we had poor credentials, admin, and the password was admin, but this wasn't an administrator account. It was actually a lower privileged user with the vulnerability in the slideshow plugin. So we actually uploaded a shell which is in revs.php, as you can see down here, and we're actually gonna set up a listener. So let's say if config, so mine is 0103, and let's cat info.txt, cat reves, so our reverse shell. So it throws a shell to my local host, to my Kelly box on port 449. So we'll listen on port 449, and we have to execute this so we can get the shell, and we got the shell. Okay, so let's move on from here. So once again, make sure to watch the first video to see how we got here step by step. Now let's python -c import pti, and we're gonna spawn a bin bash shell. So we're gonna get out of here, of this like low privilege shell. Okay, so I actually forgot a quote over there. Let's execute it again. So python -c import pti spawn a bin bash and close the quotes. Okay. Now the first thing, since we are inside the WordPress folder, the first thing that I thought was to actually check the WordPress settings file, or the config file. So let's go back more. So over here it was either the settings or the config, but I guess it was the config file, because the config file is going to hold credentials to the MySQL database. So let's cat it, and as you can see over here, we have the username for the MySQL root, and the password is MySQL. So let's use those, because right now we are nobody, so we are data, and we don't actually have any credentials for this machine, so no user. And maybe the MySQL database is gonna give some more information, or is gonna give us some users to be able to work with privilege escalation. Anyhow, MySQL -u roots, and the password was MySQL. Okay, now let's show databases. Okay, now let's use WordPress. Let's show tables. Now let's select everything from WP users. Okay. So we have our admin, for which we have the password admin, which is hashed. And we also have another user, Uncle Stinky, with a password. So this is what we are going for. Let's actually leave pad into info.txt and write this down. And to save some time, I'm gonna tell you that I already know, so it's Uncle Stinking. I already know what this hash is because I cracked it with hashcat, but I'm gonna show you the command that I used. So this actually is the hash for wedgie57. So let's see how we can crack it with hashcat. So let's first leave pad into stinky.hash. Okay, let's paste our hash, and now we're going to use hashcat -m 400, which is for WordPress, -a0 minus output is going to be, let's say, stinky pass.txt. We're going to remove the hash from stinky.hash. We're going to use rawq.txt, which on my machine is, so this is a word list, user share word list. It was in derb and rawq.txt. And so the output, we're going to remove stinky.hash. We're going to have the word list. And I also have to say force. If I don't say force, it says not a native Intel OpenCL runtime. So I'm actually, and you can use force to override. So we're actually gonna use force. And since I already cracked this, it's probably gonna say that it is in some file. So all hash is found in pod file. So at this point, if you don't have the password cracked, it'll gonna try to crack it. So if I just specify pod file disable to actually show you how hashcat works. Hashcat is empty cat stinky.hash. So there's nothing in stinky because it removed it. So leave pad stinky.hash. We're actually gonna paste it again, and we're actually gonna run that command again. And right now it's gonna start trying to brute force it to find it. So it'll probably take more than half an hour, I'm not sure. But let's just leave it. Maybe it'll find it while we actually try to escalate our privileges. Anyhow, so we know that we have Uncle Stinky with wedgie57. So what are we going to do with them now? Let's go back to our shell and let's, what was it? sh. Okay, so we're back in, so we are outside the MySQL, and let's get etc password. Maybe we have Uncle Stinky and we could log in with this password on the SSH. Get etc password. So we have Mr. Derp and we have Stinky. So there's no Uncle Stinky, but we could try logging in to Stinky with this wedgie57. So let's try and do that. SSH Stinky at 192.168.0.102, and we get a permission denied. So we can't log in with this password. Okay, the next thing that I thought of was to try to log into FTP 192.168.0.102 with the user Stinky and the password wedgie57, and we are actually in the FTP server. Let's see where we're at. I'm gonna cd back. So we have files. Let's cd into files. We have test.txt. Let's get it. So test.txt. We have network logs. Let's see what's inside. derp issues. Let's get this one as well. .txt. Let's go back, and there was another folder, I guess. Yeah, so two folders, SSH and temp, TMP. So TMP is empty. Let's make sure it is. Okay, now we have the SSH. Let's cd into SSH. ls, we have another SSH. ls, and another SSH. ls, and another one. Oh god. ls, and another one. So you might think that there's actually something in here, because this is unusual, but to a real world scenario, but this is kind of usual to capture the flags. So ls, we have another folder, inside the folder ssh, and we would eventually get to key.txt. Let's get this key.txt, and let's also exit. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3 files. So test.txt, derp issues. Let's get the test.txt. So it's a test file. Let's remove it. Okay, let's get key.txt. So this is actually a key for the SSH. Let's try actually logging in with it. Key.txt into stinky at 192.168.0.102. Permission denied. We have to remove permissions from the key file. So chmod -rwx to the key, and let's try logging in again. So we are inside as stinky. Okay. What we actually didn't do is to log in into the WordPress panel. So as Uncle Stinky with the password wedgie57. Okay, so over here we have our second flag, as you can see. Let's copy it into our leaf pad. So flag 2, right? Let's continue. So we also had another file in there, derp issues. Let's get derp issues. So it is a conversation between Derp and Stinky. I can't log into WordPress. Yeah, did you need a password? I just need to log on. I'm gonna packet capture so we can figure out. Find derp, I think I fixed it. Awesome, I guess we are. All right, yay. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. So we are in home Stinky, I guess. Yeah. Let's see what's on the desktop. And this is, I guess, the third flag. Yep. So we have our third flag over here. Control-Shift-C, and we're gonna put it over here. So remember that I said that we have 4 flags. So one more to go. And let's get out. Let's go inside the downloads. Nothing in here. Let's go into the documents. Okay, so we have a derp issue pcap. So this is a packet capture file, and we could analyze it with Wireshark. But first, let's get it on to the Kali machine. So we're going to use SCP, which copies files over SSH. So SCP, we're going to use our key.txt for login, and we're going to log in stinky 192.168.0.102, and we're actually going to get the file from let's say home stinky documents. Control-Shift-C, Control-Shift-V without the extra / documents, and the file was derp issues.pcap. Yeah, and we'll get it onto our root, downloads, train. So this is actually the folder that I am in right now, train vulnhub derp. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so we have it, derp issues pcap. Now let's Wireshark it, derp issues pcap. This is a nice machine. I actually enjoyed it a lot. So let's see what we have inside here. And to skip forward, I'm gonna actually use some filter. So we're gonna frame contains. It says in the conversation between Derp and Stinky, it said, let me see if I can. So is Mr. Derp. I can't log into WordPress anymore. And Stinky actually fixed it for him. So he probably created a new user or did something in the WordPress account. So we're actually gonna filter for frame contains, let's say Mr. Derp. And we have some packets. So user new, like I said, create new user. Username and pass equals. So let's try to follow the TCP stream and view it more beautifully. So over here we can see Mr. Derp email, name, user, so home, Mr. Derp and pass equals derp 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 blah blah blah. So let's copy this into our info.txt. So let's say Mr. Derp with this password, Control S. And what we're actually gonna do now, we can either switch user in the SSH. So we are Stinky. We can either switch users or log into another SSH as Mr. Derp, which is exactly the same thing. But before that, let's try to see what are the privileges of Stinky. So we need the password for Stinky. Is it WAG57? Yeah, so user Stinky may not run sudo on DerpNStink. Okay, so we're gonna switch users to Mr. Derp, and we're gonna copy this password, Control C, Control Shift V to paste it in the terminal, and we are Mr. Derp. Okay, let's see what we have here. Derp issues. Let's go to home, Mr. Derp. So you can see that inside home there is Mr. Derp and Stinky. So cd to Mr. Derp. Over here we're gonna go to desktop, ls-a, helpdesk log, and I actually read this and I think it redirected you, or it told you to go to some paste bin location. Oh yeah, so this one, paste bin, copy link location, and we're gonna go over there, and it says Mr. Derp all home derp binaries blah blah blah. And if you're familiar with Linux systems, you would actually know that this is what Mr. Derp can sudo can execute as sudo. So everything which is in binaries derpy. We could also get that information simply by saying sudo -l, and again get the password for derp, Control Shift V, and it says basically the same thing. User Mr. Derp may run the following commands as root, on home Mr. Derp binaries. So let's get back into home Mr. Derp. And we see that we actually don't have any binaries directory, but we're gonna create one. Make dir binaries. Okay, and inside binaries, so this was the tricky part. Let's cd into binaries. And what we want to do now, since we can execute everything which starts with derpy as root, we'd probably want to create a file, let's say derpy. So this is only one way to do it, derpy sh. So this is going to be a bash. And let's nano into derpy sh. Since it's going to be a bash script, so let's say bin bash. And what we want to do here is to try to get a TCP shell, the same way we did for getting inside as www data. So over here at the Pentest Monkey, it has a reverse shell cheat sheet, which tells you how to create reverse shells using different programs. So we're actually going to take this one, the bash, which is the simplest, and paste it. We're actually going to modify here, so our IP is 192.168.0.103, and let's set it to port, let's say 450. Let's Control O, enter, Control X to save it, to exit. So let's cat derpy sh. Okay, now let's set up a listener on port 450, LVP 450. So we're listening on port 450. So the hash is still not cracked. So like I told you, it's going to take probably more than half an hour to crack it, but let's just quit this. Okay, so we have our listener, and right now we need to execute derpy as sudo, so from Mr. Derp. So we're going to use sudo execute derpy sh. Command not found, so sudo derpy sh. What's inside the derpy sh? So bin bash bash. Clearly I'm missing something, so sudo derpy sh, sudo what if we say sudo bash derpy sh? Let's sudo sh derpy sh. Oh yeah, so let's change mod plus execute derpy sh, and right now sudo derpy sh. Okay, so that was it. We had to actually change to executable, to change the file to executable. So as you can see, we got the root back to our local Kali. So who am I? Root. Okay, present working directory, Mr. Derp. I guess we have the 3 flags, and the 4th should probably be inside root over at the desktop. So cd desktop cat flag. So this is probably it. Flag number 4. Control C. And paste it over here. So this was actually Mr. Derp, or the DerpNStink machine from VulnHub. So like I said, I actually enjoyed doing it because it kind of had multiple it had you work on multiple with multiple programs like the Wireshark, the WordPress, the arbitrary file upload, and yeah, overall I think I learned a lot. So I hope you learned a lot as well from this walkthrough. Anyhow, if you want to see more cybersecurity videos or videos with walkthroughs with machines from retired machines from Hack the Box or machines from VulnHub, leave a comment below and let me know about it. Other than that, thank you for watching and hope to see you in the next one.